Okay, so yesterday I was talking about the truth behind Russian strategic tactics, and I was making a case that, like, okay, here's Pokrovsk, this is bad. It's not strategic, but it is very bad if the Russians take it. And I was laying out my case, and then I got to talking with Greg Terry, and we want to actually like zoom in on what's happening in Pokrovsk. So, Greg, welcome. Thank you for doing this quickly. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Professor Gertis. One thing is, I think you taking a couple of days here to focus on Pokrovsk is at the right time. It is very active and it is a very important place. And for Ukraine, the world, NATO, America, whatever the case may be, to maybe overlook it a little bit and not understand the importance of it is, in my opinion, a very big mistake. It is very important.
So I don't. I think we agree that it is not strategic like the fall of Kiev. If Kiev were to be captured, that would be like war-ending kind of something, right?
If Kiev
So
is
it's not like
captured,
that.
it's a surrender.
Yeah. So it's not like that, but it's very, 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 very bad. And we want to
Yes,
understand why it's very bad. It's not the end of the war, but it could lead to dominoes that could cause it if things don't go quite right.
I think
So,
it's completely accurate. In my personal opinion, running all these places, I was just in Pokrovsk, and that will cause me in a few moments to question a couple of things I'm going to share with you.
mhm.
But Pokrovsk, if it falls, will not end the war, but it will cause a major problem for the Ukrainian army on the southern and the southeastern front. And it will be very difficult for them to recover from it. And I will use some maps here in a few moments to explain it to you. In my opinion, the only thing that could happen to end the war immediately would be the fall of Kiev. Even if Kharkiv got into major, major trouble, that still wouldn't end the war. Only Kiev. But when you look at places like Kharkiv, or, in my opinion, much more important, Pokrovsk, we must pay attention to it and try to share with the world why it's important to support down here so intently.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's see what you have. We were looking at some maps and we were looking at some articles and other things. So let's just jump right in.
Well, let's go to this right here first, and I think this will help people understand. I'm going to use the satellite image here, and I'm going to explain some things geographically for people so they understand. So, first of all, what is important? This is the supply road coming into Pokrovsk, and this comes from the city of Dnipro. There is only one other large city between Pokrovsk and Dnipro, and it's Pavlograd. The rest of that highway are small villages and open land. Once you come to Pokrovsk, and I will zoom in on this in a minute, this is Pokrovsk, and we must focus on Mirnograd. But this road splits, and I want to change the color here now. Let's just go this will be fine. The road splits and goes right to Konstantinivka. It goes to Kramatorsk. It goes to Chasiv Yar. It goes to Drushkivka and Slavyansk, Siversk, and that entire famous region, of course, where most people know about Bakhmut. Additionally, the road splits down here and pushes down toward Vushnevy and ultimately to the backside of Karakova. So, this is the only asphalt, paved, solid travel way coming into this southeastern corner. There is no other.
Mhm.
You can zoom into the map and you can look at the little roads from your satellite images and all this. I drive all of these roads, all of them. There are no more places where Ukraine can get heavy equipment in, get supply in, not only to Pokrovsk for that push that's coming up this way, but more importantly, beyond Pokrovsk to support the soldiers that are really loaded there in the east and in the southeastern corner. So logistically, it's vitally important.
So Can you do something for me? Can you zoom out and show me the borders, the geographical borders of Donetsk?
Math is math. We are talking about a small piece of the Donetsk Oblast. So, on the grand scheme of things, you're exactly right. You're talking about a very small piece of a large Donetsk pie. I get it. I completely understand it.
But it'll collapse in very quickly
It
if
will.
once it's, yeah.
Well, there's things that you have to understand, and the truth is, the next lines really of security
Are
are
far
way back
back.
here.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to defend. I
Yeah.
try to show people video of how rural it really is once you get out of these little cities down here in southern Ukraine, which is in this region, you have Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, you have Pavlograd, and then you have Dnipro. Any other
Hmm.
town is just a village, three, four
Yeah.
thousand people, and
And it's
there's
pretty easy to roll through.
pretty easy.
Yep.
So it is very important, but at the same time, correct. There's a lot of square kilometers or miles left in the Donetsk Oblast. So I think something that would be great for people to see and understand is what is Pokrovsk really? What
Hmm.
size is it? And how quick is it possible? We're hearing the rumors out there in a month, in September, in a couple of weeks. I believe that September will be very, very difficult for Pokrovsk, to be quite honest. But I
Hmm.
want people to understand why. There are three areas that we have to pay attention to. When you look at Pokrovsk, this is Pokrovsk. I'm going to outline it here. And I know there's little sections in little villages that are like suburbs, but that's Pokrovsk. That has 62,000 population pre-war. There
Hmm.
are disagreements on what is there now. I was just inside the city. I have a great idea of what's there now. The second town that we must pay attention to, this is like a Minneapolis St. Paul, but on a very
Hmm.
smaller scale, of course, is Mirnograd. And Mirnograd actually goes all the way down to here. So when you begin to look at how far down it goes, you realize that 4 kilometers is how far the Russian confirmed position is from Mirnograd. Once you're in Mirnograd, you are in Pokrovsk, technically,
Hmm.
because they just continue from one area to another. I will show you guys now the access roads. There is an access road coming in this way to Mirnograd. There is an access road that comes in this way to Mirnograd. The only other access into this area is coming up and in this way. And Pokrovsk, one road. This is why it's such a challenge right now for Ukraine because Russia is really focusing on these roads, covering them with artillery, covering them with drones, and that is not allowing Ukraine to reinforce any type of defensive positions out in this area. It's impossible. So, what they've
Hmm.
had to do is actually back up a little bit, consolidate to the best of their abilities. But the reality is, you're 8 to 9 kilometers this way, and
Hmm.
you're 4 coming in this way. Once you're in Mirnograd, and I will let me do this. Mirnograd itself, 98% of these buildings are either destroyed or have taken damage.
Okay. That
Mirnograd,
doesn't mean couldn't be defended,
no, it
but
can be
it's,
defended. It's going to be
yeah.
urban warfare, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
98%, I want people to understand how much artillery Russia
Yeah,
uses.
and that's the way the Russians fight. They just destroy with
Correct.
artillery and then send meat waves. Right.
Now, there's one other place we need to pay attention to, and I'm not really sure why. But Mirnograd, Pokrovsk, and Rodinsky, I know that's going to say, okay, what are you talking about? That's up there beyond it. Well, I'm asking myself that question. I was just in Rodinsky, coming
Mhm.
into Pokrovsk out of Dobropilia, but I can tell you that today city officials in Pokrovsk are talking about the evacuation of Rodinsky. It's very odd for my ears to hear that. And I think what would be cool right now is instead of listening to me talk about it, let's listen to the official. I've dubbed it into
Right.
English. I want you to hear this guy and let's see what your comments are on this. I know what mine are. Here we go.
Today in Pokrovsk, we have just over 30,000 people remaining in the morning. This is in Pokrovsk itself, with 30,500 in the entire community, which includes 2 cities and 39 villages, totaling 42 settlements. When it comes to children, there are 1,365 left in the city and another 2,279 in the community. You know, we are forcibly evacuating children, but not from the entire community. We are only evacuating from 2 cities and 12 villages, meaning 14 settlements in total. The rest remain. All the children in the villages close to the front line have already been completely evacuated. Now we are focusing on the cities of Pokrovsk and Rodinsky. The evacuation is proceeding at a very good pace. To be honest, we are reaching figures of up to 2,000 per day. Well, before any street battles begin, we still have several lines of defense built. But this process is not continuous. I'm talking about the Pokrovsk district, where our community is located. We are one of 14 communities working together with the regional military administration, our communities, and military engineers. These processes have already begun. Each city in Donetsk has a combat brigade that plans city defense and assigns tasks to civilians. With our efforts and help from utility workers, miners, and DFTG, we've already built what was assigned. Now we're working on inner city tasks, not citywide, but in specific areas. This work is ongoing.
So that is off the news today. And for
Mhm.
people that are in foreign countries that watch this, you just got to hear Ukrainian direct news from Pokrovsk translated to English for you.
Mhm.
You heard him say Rodinsky.
Mhm.
You heard him say 30,000 in Pokrovsk. Then he said 30,500 in the 2 cities. The 2 cities are Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. I'm just going to go straight as an arrow here. The numbers don't make sense to me.
Yeah,
2,000
it seems
kids
inflated.
coming out a day. Sir,
Sounds inflated.
it's not real.
Yeah. So
There are not 30,000 people in Pokrovsk.
he also mentioned that there were our front lines, but he didn't say like that. He said that they're there, but he didn't say like that they're fortified or that they're manned or anything along those lines. So if you just listen carefully, so but we don't know what we don't know, but at the same time, it seems like um, so I have cats, and when my cats get like riled up at each other, right? It feels like it's puffing up, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong, but okay. At any rate, that's just my read, and I don't know what I don't know. So
Well,
yeah.
here's what we do know. I was just in the middle of this city days ago.
Hmm.
There are not 30,000 people in Pokrovsk,
Hmm.
period. Every business is closed. I saw people fleeing like crazy. They are not evacuating 2,000 kids a day or 2,000 a day. It's the quantity's not there. He
Hmm.
stated there's 30,000 in Pokrovsk and 30,500 in the 2 cities, not including Rodinsky, which they are evacuating as well. He mentioned forcible evacuations of children. All of these
Mhm.
things that push panic into the Ukrainian people. So I do understand they've got to maybe work the numbers a little bit, talk about the city has a brigade. We're defending this section and that section, but not all sections. I get it. But I want the world to know that city is a ghost town right now.
Yeah.
A ghost
Yeah.
town.
So, I mean, I'd imagine there's a skeleton crew, and that's about it. And they've got to be preparing for like this rear guard at this point, recognizing that it's. I mean, they're only 4 kilometers and 8 kilometers away. So, what happens next?
This is maybe where we disagree a little bit. If
Okay.
if Pokrovsk falls, the
Hmm.
South will lose a lot of ground quickly. I will not call it a
Yeah.
collapse, but it will be shocking to people when kilometers start to get chewed up. And it's not Ukraine's fault completely. Had they built all of their defensive fortifications on the east side of Pokrovsk and Mirnograd the way they should have? Not completely. That's a fact. But some are there. But behind Pokrovsk, they're fortified very well. And once again, I really want people in your community to understand, and mine as well, the amount of artillery and drones
Hmm.
does not allow for Ukraine to do the necessary work needed to defend Pokrovsk and Mirnograd right now. It would
Right.
be devastating to the Ukrainian army trying to fortify on those eastern sides. It
Right.
would
And
be
so you can't.
nonstop.
So you can't play that game. You can't play the attritional loss game with the Russians. So you're going to have to necessarily give ground. Anders Puck Nielsen was talking about this yesterday, and I highlighted that where you're like when you're defensive, you know that you're going to lose ground. This is the reality. You're trying to attrit as much as possible to the other side while you slowly cede territory. Now there will be larger ceding of territory after that because you're crossing across fields. But this is where, depending on how long it takes, General Winter could be helpful, might not be. This depends on the timing. But General Winter could slow any advance down significantly for some time while the Ukrainians have time to refortify the next lines, wherever those may be. So when we get to mud season, if you can get through Pokrovsk and you get only get through Pokrovsk but can't get beyond that, mud season will slow down as much as any enemy fire will. So,
There
okay.
was quite a bit of analysis coming out from BUILD in Germany, Institute for the Study of War in United States, basically saying my viewpoint here, and that
Hmm.
is Pokrovsk will be a challenge over the next 30 days.
Hmm.
And if Pokrovsk falls, that will be a stabilization point for the war where
Hmm.
Ukraine will solidify their lines. Russia will try and solidify theirs. And then both armies, Ukrainian and Russian, will look at spring 2025 offensives in that
Hmm.
southern region. So if I had to make a bet today, my bet would be that Pokrovsk will have a very difficult chance standing the way it is right now. That's not saying
Hmm.
something miraculous couldn't happen in a week, but right now. And that red line will move into Pokrovsk. Mirnograd will fall. There's a reason they're evacuating Rodinsky. When you watch Ukrainian news and you hear directly from city representatives like that guy who is the Pokrovsk city representative, they are telling you things between the lines. I translated it into English so people could hear it. They could hear Rodinsky. They could hear forced evacuations. They could hear we're not defended in every portion of the city. We're defending in the areas that we can. We have a city battalion. Every city has a battalion. Well, we all
Hmm.
know that. But the reality is that's as close to the truth as you're going to get directly from a Ukrainian speaker out of Pokrovsk. And I'm so glad I was able to get that news report today translate it and share it for your audience and for mine, because that tells the story. Pokrovsk will become the red line, wherever that is, east side of it, center of it, west side of it,
Yeah.
and winter will come. And on a note, Ukraine put out news today that they are expecting the first frost September the 15th.
Yeah. How
So,
about that?
exactly.
Can't come
So,
fast enough at this point,
exactly.
right?
So,
Yeah.
at that point, we will see. But on the flip side, we can talk about a consolidation there for both sides, but this will have a very detrimental effect on Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Druzhkivka, and Slavyansk.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess what we're trying to do is show the reality of what's going on, and I also want to do it within the big picture of like that's why I showed you how to see the boundaries of Donetsk, and
Hmm.
that's just of Donetsk. That's not like of like all of Ukraine falling or something like that. So it's not like oh no, it's the sky's falling. Although it is, this is bad. Like like this is not a good thing that's happening right now, but it's not game over. And that's the difference between strategic and important. This is important, but it's not a strategic loss in the sense that it necessarily means the other side wins. It means it makes it harder.
Well,
And
and
it means probably some secession of territory up to the next big cities. And that's probably the reality. If General Winter doesn't come soon, that's the reality.
but let's be reminded, they haven't lost it yet.
Yeah.
So they're still fighting, but it is a very challenging situation. And my purpose in being here today and help people understand Pokrovsk is to let people be aware my physical body, my eyeballs
Mhm.
was just inside Pokrovsk. So
Yeah.
I feel I can share accurately that it's a ghost town and there
Yeah.
are not 30,000 people there. There's only
Mhm.
military there and very, very few civilians who are moving out. With
Well,
that
and that's
said,
good.
it is
That's good
good.
because whatever military has to do, they don't want to have civilians in the way to have to save. You got to get out of Dodge so they can do whatever it is, guard or otherwise. They don't want civilians there.
I believe this is why you heard the representative Pokrovsk speaking very clearly, and it was translated perfectly, forced evacuation of the
Hmm.
children. Because the Ukrainian soldier is a moral soldier
Hmm.
and they are kind and they would lose their life themselves to save a kid that was left there or hadn't evacuated when they should have. This is the
Yeah,
quality and the character of Ukrainian soldiers. So for them to be out, this allows the
yeah.
soldiers to do their job.
And
Additionally,
that's such a contrast too. The morality of the Ukrainians, you can see contrasting in Kursk what the Ukrainians have done as opposed to what even Russian soldiers have done to their own Russian people in Kursk, or the morality that you were just describing of trying to save that child as opposed to I saw an article yesterday, the suicide rate for Russian soldiers on the battlefield has been 1.5 or 1.1 per 1.5 days
mm,
over the last like 90 days or something. I don't remember exactly how long the time frame was, but like wait a minute, what? And it would have been higher except for rifles have jammed while they were
mhm.
like like while they were attempting that. I mean, so there is such a different worldview and mindset that it's unbelievable.
I would even to bring a little more positivity as we close out here in a minute. Um, the Kursk incursion, I know that Ukraine is doing a good job there, and they are hoping and believing that that will even maybe relieve some pressure on the southern front. That could happen. I mean, we can't predict it, but that's a possibility. I will tell you, though, the bombings that have happened, and a lot of them have not made the news, but the Kharkiv one did, where we had so many wounded.
Mhm.
Ukraine was subject to new rocket propelled glide bombs that Russia is now
Mhm.
using. Additionally, last night, Sumy was hit. We lost 4 people, we lost infrastructure, And this morning, Kyiv was hit. So these
Mhm.
mass terror attacks continue. So as Ukraine is hitting refineries, as Ukraine is moving and doing good things on the Russian territory in Kursk, hopefully that will relieve some of this pressure that maybe Pokrovsk is facing, or some of these
Yeah.
larger cities that are under constant bombardment right now. We're talking
Yeah, they hit an
about,
orphanage in
yes,
Sumy. They hit an orphanage and a child rehabilitation center, and they claimed that they had killed dozens of troops and hit 3 HIMARS launchers. That's
correct,
what the Russians claimed
correct.
while they did that. Like,
Yeah, I saw the video. That's what
yeah.
they do. And, just think about that, Prof. You're talking about facing an enemy that will just blow up anything and then claim it to be something else. They will
Mhm,
take video and they will manipulate it to make the enemy look as the evil ones. They will disguise their work. They work behind enemy lines in such ways, I mean, inside Ukraine, that is indescribable as to what they do to the civilian population, literally
mhm.
just shooting them right in their cars. Jane and I have to be so careful in certain areas we go of DRG, and we actually put armored on our windows. We do everything that we can do because it's a real situation. You contrast that with how Ukraine is doing their best to wage war, to be
Mhm.
honorable, to work with partner nations and get supply here. While right now, Vladimir Putin is just landing in Mongolia and, of course, will not be arrested. And
No.
the
And that's a
world,
test. He's doing that to test it to show that, see, nobody's going to arrest me. So he's doing it in the least dangerous place because Mongolia can't really leave the real estate between China and Russia.
yeah,
And so, I mean,
this
so
is
that's
just
just a test of the ICC.
the information war is so beyond what the typical person who follows the Ukraine war and tries to help really understands. Um, that that machine that Ukraine and the rest of the world is having to fight against, that's called Russian propaganda, is a, a very difficult force to deal with. But that's why we're here, to help disseminate it, to help explain it, to help understand it. You're there saying, okay, they said they hit 3 HIMARS, but they didn't. What can we do?
Mhm.
We can share the truth. No, they're hitting orphanages and schools and shopping centers. The strike in Kharkiv 2 days ago was just unbelievable. I've been at that shopping center, and when
Mhm.
that bomb hit, I could see vehicles driving by, and I think it was 41 casualties there. And it just makes me even think about myself, that when Jane and I, especially when we're on the front and we're doing all of these things in all these cities, your life can change in a millisecond. And
Mhm.
Russia is indiscriminate in what they target.
Mhm.
And that is why we have to continue to share truth, circle that back around. This is why it's very important that Ukraine do the best job they can to hold on to Pokrovsk, because we
Yeah.
need to be able to supply that southeastern and eastern front to the fullest capabilities.
So okay, so we got we went longer than I anticipated, which generally happens. But okay, so thank you, Greg. And uh, if you have not seen, if you're watching me and you have not seen the Greg Terry Experience, go to his channel, sign up there, Greg Terry Experience. Or at Greg Terry Experience as one word, and he is physically in Ukraine. He'll physically keep you updated on what's going on. You'll see the fundraisers that we're about to finally conclude, a big fundraiser from last year, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. It's just, you'll see this. Just go to his channel. Let's finish with that last little bit, the link that I sent you. Okay, so here's the title: Putin gives army September deadline to take more Ukraine land, according to an official. What's the date that you see there?
I see an authorship date of September 1st, 2022.
Okay, so let's go down, scroll down a little bit and read the first 2 lines.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly given his troops a September 15th deadline to push to the administrative borders of the eastern Donetsk region in the ongoing war, according to Ukrainian military official.
That's it. That's what first just two lines there, one sentence. Okay,
Mhm.
so they had till September 15th of 2022 in order to get to the administrative borders of Donetsk. And look where we actually are. So I want to leave you with that comforting note because okay, I mean, with everything that we said, it's grim, it's bad, but like okay, in context,
But the bottom line is they're not accomplishing the goals that he is setting out, which means Ukraine is doing a better job. Could you just imagine if they were supplied properly?
yeah. Yeah, that's I mean it's phenomenal what they have been able to do given what they were up against and how long they've been able to prevail. I always find it interesting when trolls are like, "So is Ukraine winning?" Let's turn that around. So is Russia winning? You don't even control the four administrative borders of the things that you claim to have stolen in 2022. So, okay, at any
It's
rate, that's where
exactly
we are.
right. And this is why I'm so proud of my Ukrainian brothers and sisters here. And I'm so proud of those people around the world, whether it's, your channel there, Professor Curtis Explains, mine, or a dozen others of really, really good YouTube channels that support Ukraine, stand for the truth, raise support, and all these wonderful thousands and thousands and thousands of people that support and keep up with what's going on through all of us. I'm so appreciative. Don't give up. Do not be discouraged. I am a firm believer that hopium will destroy Ukraine. But I am a
Yeah.
firm believer that truth will liberate Ukraine and will bring the aid that is needed and the morale boost that is needed as the world sees what the world is facing against the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin and his imperialistic narrative and initiatives. If we stand and share truth, I believe the world will do
Mhm.
the right thing.
There's every reason for hope. You don't need to add false hope, which turns an ugly corner on that. You just don't need that, but you need to be aware of what's going on. All right, Greg, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and
Thank
we'll
you,
be
Prof.
talking soon.
Thank you, brother. Have a good day.